It was just another typical day on the road when a group of intimidating bikers decided to mess with the wrong person. They revved their engines, loud and proud, thinking they could scare anyone in their path. But little did they know, the woman they targeted wasn't going to back down. With the engine noise roaring around her, she stood her ground, unfazed, calm, and collected. What happened next left everyone around her completely speechless. You won't believe what she did in response. It's a moment that proves you can't judge someone by their appearance, and sometimes strength comes in unexpected forms. So stay tuned to see how this confrontation plays out, and trust me, you won't want to miss the shocking twist that follows. The bikers, a rough and tumble crew, had been known to bully anyone who crossed their path. Their leather jackets, tattoos, and gruff attitudes created an intimidating presence wherever they went. As they rode up, they spotted her, alone standing by her car, looking unbothered by the noise. To them, she was just another easy target for their games. They figured they'd pull up, make a few snide comments, and maybe get a reaction. But this woman, she wasn't like the others. She didn't flinch when they revved their engines right beside her. The tension between them built as they circled around her, taunting, pushing her buttons, trying to provoke a response. But nothing, not a word. It was as if she was waiting for something. Her calmness made the bikers uneasy, and for the first time, they began to wonder if they had made a mistake. What was she really thinking? As the bikers continued to circle, their laughs grew louder, fueled by the growing tension. They were used to seeing people crumble under their intimidation, but she still didn't react. One of them, a tall guy with a beard and a sneer on his face, pulled up close and leaned over his handlebars. "You got a problem, sweetheart," he called out, his voice dripping with sarcasm. His friends joined in, egging him on, all thinking the same thing. She was just another scared civilian. But this wasn't her first time facing down bullies like them. Years of dealing with her own struggles had taught her to keep her composure, even when everything inside was screaming to fight back. Yet, something about this situation felt different. She could sense a shift in their energy, the way their mocking tones wavered as they realized she wasn't afraid. In the distance, a car passed by, its headlights casting long shadows over the scene. The bikers were starting to grow restless, their once unified taunts fading into uncertainty. They looked at each other, unsure if this woman was playing them or if she truly didn't care. Was she just waiting for them to make the first move? Or was there something they weren't seeing? The longer they stood there, the more the tension thickened, each second dragging on in heavy silence. The silence stretched on, thick and almost suffocating. The bikers exchanged looks, their confident smirks beginning to falter. They'd never encountered anyone who wouldn't bite back, not like this. The tall one, the leader of the pack, revved his engine loudly, the sound vibrating through the pavement. "What's your deal, huh?" "Too scared to speak," he shouted. His voice, once full of cocky confidence, now held a trace of frustration. The woman remained unmoved, her eyes never leaving the leaders. She didn't even flinch when one of the bikers rode up close, his tires screeching as he purposely cut a wide circle around her. The air between them was crackling with energy, her calm, unshaken demeanor in sharp contrast to their growing unease. Then, just as the tension reached its peak, something unexpected happened. One of the bikers, a younger guy with a nervous twitch, looked over his shoulder. A shadow crossed his face. He was scanning the street, his eyes darting in every direction, as if sensing something they couldn't see. The leader sneered at him. "What's wrong with you? You scared?" But the young man wasn't listening. He pointed toward the far end of the street. "We've got company," he muttered, his voice barely audible over the hum of the engines. The bikers turned, their eyes narrowing, but there was nothing there, just an empty stretch of road, lit only by the flickering streetlights. Still, that uneasy feeling settled deeper in their stomachs. Something wasn't right, and the longer they stayed, the more they felt the weight of it. The woman, however, never moved her gaze from the leader. She knew something they didn't. She was waiting for them to make the next move, but with every passing second, It was becoming clear. The tables were about to turn. As the bikers continued to stare down the empty road, the air grew heavier, and the quiet buzz of the street seemed louder than before. The young biker who had spotted something was still scanning the distance, his posture rigid with tension. Then it happened. From the corner of the street, a black motorcycle appeared out of nowhere, cutting through the night like a shadow. It was sleek, fast, and unmistakably different from the loud, bulky bikes of the group. The bikers froze as the figure on the motorcycle slowly revved the engine, the sound echoing like a warning. It wasn't the rider's appearance that made the tension spike, it was the way they moved. Smooth, controlled, and silent. The new rider coasted toward them with an eerie calmness that mirrored the woman's own presence. For a moment, no one spoke. The woman's eyes flickered toward the new arrival, but she didn't look surprised. The leader of the pack, now visibly unsettled, took a step forward, his fingers twitching near his handlebars. "Who the hell are you?" he growled, his voice losing its edge. The rider didn't respond. Instead, they slowly lifted their helmet, revealing a face the bikers didn't expect. It was someone they knew, someone from their past. The woman's gaze locked on the newcomer, her eyes narrowing as a smirk tugged at the corners of her mouth. The surprise was clear, even on the tough biker's face. They hadn't seen this person in years, but the moment they locked eyes, they knew something was about to change. The stakes were higher than ever, and the game they thought they were playing had just taken a very dangerous turn. The tension in the air thickened as the mysterious rider took a step forward, their presence shifting everything. What had been a standoff between the woman and the bikers now became something much more intense, and no one knew how it would end. The bikers' eyes widened as the rider pulled off their helmet, revealing a face that instantly triggered memories. It was someone they never thought they'd see again, a former member of their crew, someone who had disappeared years ago under mysterious circumstances. The leader's jaw dropped, his cocky attitude faltering for the first time in years. "Jake," the leader whispered, his voice shaky. The man who had once been part of their tight-knit gang nodded slowly, the corners of his mouth curling into a faint, knowing smile. He wasn't just back, he had a purpose, and it was clear the bikers were about to pay the price for their past mistakes. But the woman, she wasn't done yet. She stepped forward, her expression cold and calculating, and locked eyes with Jake. There was a tension between them too, a history that no one had expected. Jake's eyes flickered to her briefly, a silent understanding passing between them. He wasn't here for them, he was here for her. With a swift motion, the woman pulled something from under her jacket, a small, gleaming object. The bikers blinked in confusion. It was a phone, but it wasn't just any phone. She tapped the screen, and suddenly, the sound of sirens filled the air, getting closer by the second. It wasn't just the woman who had been playing a game tonight. She had known all along that this moment would come, but the bikers wouldn't stop until they were stopped. The bikers scrambled, their faces now pale, as they turned to run, but it was too late. From behind them, the first police cars appeared, lights flashing, tires screeching as they came to a sudden halt. The bikers had been caught, cornered by their own arrogance. Jake didn't stick around. Without a word, he turned his bike and sped off into the night, disappearing just as quickly as he had arrived. The woman didn't look at him again. She turned back toward the bikers, who were now surrounded by officers. She was calm, almost detached, but there was a slight glint in her eyes. What the bikers didn't know was that the woman wasn't just some random target. They had crossed paths with someone who had the skills, the knowledge, and the connections to turn the tables. And now, with their reign of intimidation shattered, they were left with nothing. As the sirens faded into the distance, the woman smiled to herself, a quiet satisfaction settling over her. But just before she walked away, she glanced one last time at the now distraught bikers. There was one final twist. The woman wasn't just any victim. She was a cop undercover, sent to take them down all along. As the last of the bikers were led away in handcuffs, the woman walked calmly to her car, her mission complete. The night was quiet now, the danger gone, but the tension from moments ago still lingered in the air. She took a deep breath, knowing she had just brought down a crew that had been terrorizing this town for far too long. Her role as an undercover cop had been a careful balance, staying hidden, staying calm, and waiting for the perfect moment to strike, and she had done it perfectly. As she started her car and drove off, the weight of the night's events settled in. She'd faced intimidation and fear, but in the end, it wasn't the bikers who controlled the situation, it was her. The woman had turned the tables, and the message was clear: never underestimate someone, no matter how quiet or unassuming they seem. The power was always within her reach.